Okay, hello everyone, this is a quick update. First of all, yeah, it's my first Lavecon at the weekend. Only went on the Saturday. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. I spoke quite a bit to Drew Wagar. Quick hello, goodbye with Commander Burr. I think you always come away from these things wishing you had a bit more time to talk to the people that you got to talk to. And so many hours when you're wandering around looking at stuff where I'd much rather have perhaps wanted to find out, meet other players that played with online, know of, and feel like you know so well but never actually met in person. And so anyway, yeah, some meetings I wish could have been longer and others were great. I mean, sat and had a long chat with Drew about various things, and yeah, nice bloke. Nice bloke. Gone a bit off the game at the moment. He might get back into it at some point, but I think he's pretty sanguine about the whole thing now. And I mean, he showed willing by turning up at Lavecon, signing his books for people, chatting to everybody. So yeah, he's still, at least if he's not playing the game very much anymore, at least considers himself to be still a part of the community and still eager to see that other people are still enjoying the game. He doesn't take that away from anyone else. So fair play. He's just a bit down on it himself lately, and he may or may not come round. We'll have to see. Maybe some of this new content might do something in that regard. So yeah, it was a good experience. I quite enjoyed it. I always come away wishing I had a little bit more time to talk to people than I got, but yeah, and it was blazing hot. So I mean, it was nicely air conditioned in the buildings themselves, but outside you could have cooked the air in a sock. In fact, it felt like it already had been, and it was pretty oppressive walking from one building to the other. Absolutely sweltering, but fun to meet people. Came back with a t-shirt and a bag and a water bottle, and actually got to talk to Tom, part of the design team, for a while and about a few things. They weren't going to give anything away, obviously, but I thought I'd just get a request in while I was at it. So and thanks to Sally, who said she would ask about getting some liveries in the store that I asked about. So whether she does or not, appreciate that she said that she would ask for me. I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't have some kind of epic in-game event before Lavecon. To me, it felt like a missed chance for a good bit of PR to have everybody have something to gossip about at the weekend. I mean, yeah, sure, people had plenty to talk about anyway, and it wasn't like there was nothing going on, but yeah, I just think something to have really got a buzz might have been a good move. It just feels like a missed opportunity to have people really G'd up about something that's only just happened and everybody's still reacting to. I just think that would have been a lot of fun. In the same way, I suppose, as the high-res screenshot bug, which didn't get fixed till after Distant Worlds 2, which would have been the best place to showcase it, with almost 14,000 commanders going off and taking pictures. That would have been the ideal, never to be repeated showcase of how nice high-res screenshots can look in Elite, and that always felt like a missed opportunity to me as well. Anyway, it feels like they just miss the boat on these things sometimes, and like if they just did things a little bit sooner, what a difference that could make, timing wise to some of these things. Anyway, while that was all going on, community goals were released, and last Tuesday the community goal for handing in Guardian artifacts was renewed. So that was a heavy hint that the Proteus Wave Salvation super weapon wasn't going to get fired. And this week that Guardian artifacts got renewed again on Tuesday. So for the third week in a row, people are handing in Guardian artifacts for Salvation to build his Proteus Wave and super weapon. The week 2 quantities went down about 10% on week 1, but down 20% on participants. So each person actually delivered more in week 2 than week 1. And finally, he sort of only fell shy of that total by 10%, which is, we'll see if it happens again. I mean, 3 weeks in a row collecting Guardian artifacts. But anyway, it's they're still paying good money for them, so if you don't mind it, if you want to do it, it's easy money anyway. And then on Thursday, there were two new community goals. One to do with AX fighting in HIP 22460, which we'll come to in a minute. But first, this one, the hunt for the drug kingpin Oberon Church. Now, it's a weird story to suddenly resurrect, since the last we heard of him was around August 3 years ago. So a quick bit of background. About July 3305, the Federation conducted a raid on Oberon Church, who's this drug kingpin, this drug cartel. And they did this because his second in command, Jan somebody, can't remember her second name, but she turned herself into the Federation, saying, look, he's creating this new drug at the moment, and it's just gonna kill people. And I'm a business person, you know, this is a step too far. Completely stupid idea. And so anyway, she basically turned evidence against him, and there was a bunch of raids on his property, and they seized narcotics and weapons and money, but he escaped. And so over the next couple of months, his second in command mysteriously died in custody after giving evidence against him, and he basically vanished into the ether. And the last thing that happened was in August, with a bit of scandal about, oh, did he have someone on the inside to bump her off, and etc, etc, etc. And then, to all intents and purposes, that story was just over with. And that was August 3 years ago. Now they reckon they've pinned him down, and they want to finish him off. So a CG started for that. It is still running. It's going to be running for only a few hours more now, and it got okay of a take up, not too bad. I mean, within a day there was almost 3/4 of a billion in bounties. People shooting wanted ships in the area, in the Andrawati system, where they say they've got him pinned down. They have revealed that Church has gathered his remaining followers, and they want to try and take him down once and for all, and they're hiring independent pilots. And so any wanted ships, go there, blow them away, hand in the bounties, easy money. You're not going to be you're not going to be conflict zones, it's just going to be resource sites. And if I don't know if there's a compromised navigation beacon in the system, I haven't looked. But whatever the case, yeah, easy money really. Just take any half decent ship there and rack up a few millions in bounties, and yeah. But yeah, okay, it's a bit strange, this one, to suddenly bring back a 3-year-old story like this, considering that it's nowhere near as lucrative as, for example, blowing Thargoids away. If you can do that quickly, you can make a hell of a lot more money from combat blowing Thargoids away than NPC ships. But for NPC ships, that's not bad at all. What it's got to do with anything, I haven't got the faintest idea. If this is an attempt to show the efficiency of the Proactive Detective Bureau, they were given these encrypted hard drives to decode. So in other words, it wasn't really them, it was down to good old-fashioned police work. So a couple of players have observed this, and it doesn't really justify the Proactive Detection Bureau. So if that's the point of this CG, then I don't think anyone's going to buy that. Yeah, there you go, that's that one. The AX community goal launched last Thursday at the same time as this federal one, was very, very quickly filled up. They had, by Friday, they'd over halfway completed it. They wanted 500 billion in AX bounties handing in, and within 24 hours they had to put it up to 1 trillion because it was in danger of being completed with tier 8 of 9 hit. Those AX guys and girls do not mess around, and they were just pumping in the bounties. And even after raising it to 1 trillion, they completed it yesterday. That may get renewed again for Thursday, maybe with a slightly higher target. If you look at the latest Burpit video, he talks about how actually AX zones for anybody getting into them could be a little bit easier, because with the mega ships shooting at them as well, and the other ships in support, a lot of the time the mega ships are able to exert the hearts of Thargoid interceptors, so that then you just have to blow them away. And they're very good at taking scouts out in a couple of hits as well. And the swarms seem to stay away from you and not fly at you like they normally do. and Burst speculates whether that might be because they don't want them flying into the megaship, and so they've just held off on their swarming capability when it comes to players. Could be, but for whatever the case, it's a little bit easier to fight them at the moment, and so if you're new to AX or you want to get into AX, it's actually quite a good time to do it right now when it's relatively straightforward and you've got a megaship helping you to destroy them if you want to do that. But the bonds that they turned in, the AX combat bonds they turned in, were just absolutely phenomenal, and AXI and co did their usual job of just absolutely monstering it, and that CG got completed with just under 2 days to go, even after doubling it on Friday. So that may get repeated this Thursday. That might run. It might run for another week if they put the target up high enough, or it might just be that people have had enough of it by then anyway. And yeah, it's good money, very, very good money, obviously, compared to blowing away NPCs. If you are any good at AX, it is just phenomenal amounts of money can be made. The top 10 commanders were handing in 8,000 million. So enough to buy a fleet carrier and some bits for it, maybe 2 fleet carriers if you were one of the top 10 commanders. 2 new megaships have been added to 22-460, the INV Illustrious Fortune and the FNS Varian Scott. High conflict zones, high AX conflict zones now exist and have Hydras in them. The Bright Sentinel, Heart of Taurus and the other megaships and the previous conflict zones are all as they were. So where it's all going, it looks like we're going to have to wait a couple of weeks at least. This has happened many times throughout the story. We'll get a new piece of information or trail to follow, which gets us all excited for the possibilities, and then it's weeks before they pick it up again. Although this isn't just leaving the story and coming back to it, this is we're kind of dragging it out a bit, which isn't to say I want it rushed with events happening one after the other, bang bang bang, no time to digest or reflect or see how anything fits in with anything else. I'm all for a bit of pacing, but this isn't the first time an event has happened which has got people interested only for the result to be dragged out for weeks on end until it's just going to lose momentum doing that. It's not even me looking to have a dig, it's just going to happen. So perhaps more anti-Xeno community goals will run again with different salvation weapons as rewards. Perhaps a few other stories out of left field like the Kingpin will set off community goals of their own or just appear throughout Galnet during the next couple of weeks. The Guardian artifact collecting phase ends on Tuesday, which could set something up for next Thursday, or they could wait another week. I don't think anybody thinks that Salvation really will wipe out the Thargoids for good, but one comment I read was, if Salvation expects to completely eradicate the Thargoids, then why is he handing out weapons as rewards if they're going to be unnecessary after the super weapons fired? A sensible precaution, just covering all bases, or a moment of doubt? The articles at the moment, while we wait for this Proteus super weapon to be fired, which I'm guessing will be at least another week if not 2, so articles at the moment, although they're connected to the story, are also mainly talking points. So this article with Jade Sanderlin, who conducted the interviews with the 3 superpower admirals a few weeks ago, has Operation Witch Hunt written in as a reason for the plan's delay, which is a nice touch, even though it's now obvious that these events are going to be running until the August update. But it's nice to have that shoehorned in and made a further part of the lore. This is the first of 3 articles giving the thoughts of prominent figures in the ED galaxy. It points out that Salvation has not shared how his technology works with anyone, that despite this, the mood of the superpowers helping out is optimistic. Some criticisms of Salvation and Azimuth based on their actions so far, and one of them is from a previously unknown content creator who's blaming Salvation for the lack of effort to communicate with the Thargoids, and therefore cutting off any chance of diplomacy before it could even begin. And this article here has statements from some of the power play leaders, ministers and ambassadors about the war, and a lot of this is really echoing thoughts that players have had about the story, and no doubt comments that FDev have noted from the player base. So Archon Delane hasn't changed his mind since the summit, where he gave his famous Crown of Bonus speech, and still supports wiping out the Thargoids. Yuri Grom thinks what's stopping the weapon being turned on people, and well, what guarantees do we have it won't be? Zemina Torval looks no further than business links and sales. Hadrian Duval hopes that any alliance, no matter who it's with, doesn't last, and says that the Empire must learn how to stand alone. Octavia Volkov of the Marlinists says she's aware of the Thargoid threat at all times and doesn't trust Azimuth. And Jasmina Halsey, the ex-Federation president before Hudson, and former advisor to Edmund Mahon of the Alliance, she's now serving as an Alliance ambassador to the Federation, and she sees the agreement between the Federation and the Alliance as a good thing and thinks it shouldn't be restricted to just anti-Xeno operations, but extend to commercial operations as well. And so finally, this article by Deputy Editor of the Sovereign News feed asks a few of the basic questions that we've asked an interminable number of times now. Do we have the right to just wipe them out? Didn't we provoke them in the first place by invading their territory? They were flying around the galaxy for 1,000,000 years before we were here, so who do we think we are? And all the questions that have already been debated ad nauseum by the player base. And it might be no more than a crude hash of some of the same old questions if it wasn't for this bit about communication. We've been denied any way to communicate with the Thargoids in any understandable way since they appeared in the game. So, although it's a thought that players have had over the years, this is the first time that I know about that it's actually been speculated about in game and can now be considered. It can now be considered a valid question story wise. So anyway, the update in August should mark some kind of closure somewhere. In November we know that another narrative something is set to begin, and from the few comments I got about the story from FDev at Lavecon, it seems this will be taking aspects of this story and continuing them on into a new thread. And the feeling within FDev, at least the ones I spoke to, does seem to be that they believe this will be one ongoing narrative in some form. You know, the Salvation narrative will most likely come to a close now in August sometime, September at the latest, by the time maybe we've had the aftermath, or you know, it's kicked off the next stage of the Thargoid War, or whatever has happened by then. And then some aspects of this story will be continued in a new narrative in November, and so it's worth keeping an eye on other Galnet articles, especially Galnet articles that don't seem to be connected to anything right now, because they could be setting up events to start kicking off just before Christmas. But yeah, that's it for the moment. I can see it being quiet for at least another week. Business as usual. We might get another AX CG. The Guardian artifacts will carry on until Tuesday. They might throw another CG at us, but until then, yeah, there's the conflict zones to go and fight in. There's other stuff to do if you're part of Operation Witch Hunt. You know, you've got Maya to try and kick Azimuth out of. That said, they could throw some complete curveball at us in a few hours' time, because as I record this, it's only about 6 hours, just under 6 hours, before the maintenance update. So take care, thanks for watching, and I'll keep you posted.